Hello and welcome to this video lecture on an overview of international project management. Let's get started. First of all, let's look at some examples of international projects, just to have some context. There's various ways that international projects can take place. One type is a Canadian company completes the entire project in another country and brings the product back to Canada. So that's one type. Another would be an international company is located in Canada, completes the work, and then brings the product back to its home country. Another is a Canadian company completes the work in an international country for the international country. And finally, number 4, the Canadian company completes components of a project in Canada and the rest in another country. So as you can see, there are many different ways of performing what are collectively called international projects. Let's explore type number 4. Teams are located in Canada and in other countries. The Canadian company assigns an overall project manager who is accountable for the product and work completed by all teams in Canada and the other countries. The work in the other countries is completed by a team from an international company, although the Canadian company can have staff in another country. The international company may assign their own project manager to manage their components, but that project manager will still report to the overall Canadian project manager. And the international company may also choose to have their project manager or technical team work from Canada and coordinate the work from Canada for the offshore team. As you can see, there are various ways, again, to organize the work in terms of where the project manager and project teams are located. Here's an example of an organization chart. And in this case, we have the overall project manager, as was indicated, and there may be one or more Canadian teams, and then there's an international project management or team leader. And again, as was indicated on the previous slide, that individual could be located in Canada or in the international country, and the team would be located in the international country. So this is one example of a project organization chart. Now, how teams work together. The teams in the other countries can complete components, such as development or testing, or an entire component of the overall product. The Canadian team and teams in other countries often meet daily at a preset time to better coordinate the work and increase communication, and this is often challenging with different time zones and so on. Teams will have to select a time that is mutually agreeable, and so sometimes this may mean a nighttime meeting for one of the teams in one of the countries. So that's just an ongoing fact of life. Ongoing communication between teams is also achieved through processes such as regular status reporting and demonstration of deliverables. So again, the importance of regular status reporting, which we've seen in the course, is important. And communication between team members in different countries is also made much easier with tools such as video conferencing, screen sharing, and online chatting. So many of the tools that are enabled by current technology allow for team members in different countries to really be able to effectively communicate through these tools. Well, why go through all this additional work to perform an international project? Well, international organizations have a large pool of resources and can quickly satisfy the resource needs of a project. If the project is confined to one country, say Canada, we're limited by the resources of Canada. But if we have teams in other countries, we have access to their resources and people as well. International organizations can provide skills not inherent in the Canadian company. So that's similar to the first point. The product or service was originally purchased by the Canadian company from the international organization. So oftentimes there's acquisitions made so the teams are in another country. And projects can take advantage of time zone differences between countries so that the work is completed 24/7 or around the clock. That, for example, the Canadian company may work on it during our working hours and then pass it to another country, which work on it for the next so many hours and so on, and the work just gets passed back and forth, and we're not limited by the workday of one country. And potential for lower cost. Uh, the with the cost of living and wages lower in other countries, this can have result in some cost benefits of having work done internationally. Um, Now, years ago, the cost difference between Canadian and international resources was much larger, and companies yielded a greater benefit than today. Some of that is starting to shrink, but it's still apparent in some cases. Now, some of the challenges, there's time zone differences, as I mentioned. The time zone difference between company and Asia is anywhere from 9.5 to 12 hours, depending on the country, and this can cause challenges for team members to communicate and collaborate. So a lot of times they're not really working at the same time. Some of the solutions is international organizations will often have a team member located in Canada to work with the Canadian team. And they will also, very early in the morning or late in the evening, meet with the offshore teams to communicate the work. So you can have an international contact in Canada. Another solution used is that Canadian and international teams will meet at a common time, and that's what I mentioned earlier, i.e., either very late or very early in the morning or very late at night. So those are some of the solutions. There can be language barriers. The primary language for many countries where international companies are located is not necessarily English, so communication can be a problem. Well, some of the solutions. Many international companies dealing with Canada have adopted English as their language of business. Video and teleconferencing have made it easier to communicate. And conversations, meetings, and key documents like requirements are normally documented, which allows for the international team the opportunity to fully understand the material and ask questions. And with automatic translation, Google Translate, and so on, this can help with this. But again, it comes down to the importance of a lot of the planning documentation, that when it's documented, it can be translated and allow for good communication when language is a barrier. There can be cultural differences, another challenge. One challenge to be aware of from the project perspective is that teams outside of Canada have different holidays, which impact the project schedule. Project managers are building into the project schedule any holidays and other countries that other countries have, and may also include contingency for unexpected events. So that's a possible solution. In terms of international projects, there's also risks, the availability of resources. There may be increased competition for experienced resources. For financial, there may be currency fluctuation that could affect the budget of the project. Many times the cost benefit is based on a certain exchange rate, and that may change, and that's a key risk. And there's also the risk of communication issues, which we talked about previously. There may be additional challenges, such as different languages, time zones, and geographic locations. And that's an overall overview of international projects. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.